we're setting ourselves up for long-term funding, and being a space that it can be known for inclusion. Hi, Hive community, and welcome to Talking Inclusivity with the Hive. I'm your host, Tonya Whitlock, and today we're going to be doing things just a little bit differently. Normally, I come on and I do interviews for all of our community and advocates that are coming in to speak with us. But today, we are going to be having our social media rep, Ansley Dalton, come in, and Ansley is going to be asking me the questions. So, welcome, Ansley.
Thank you very much.
So, first of all, Ansley, do you want to just talk about like the layout a little bit, and then we can go into the question just so people know um, kind of what this is about?
Yeah. So basically the whole purpose of this is just kind of give everyone an idea of like what the Hive is, a little bit of Tanya's story and like how this all came about, and then kind of go into some deeper questions about the Hive that aren't typically covered unless you're like deeply in the community. So even if you're like a part of the Hive and kind of already know about it, hopefully this will give like a deeper understanding. And if it's your first time hearing about the Hive, you'll kind of get like a holistic idea of what it is. We can kind of start with talking about your story, if that's good. So do you want to kind of just touch on like your experience with your son, how that was raising him in Tampa and just like what was lacking and how this all came about?
Yeah. So, I have a 31-year-old son who has cerebral palsy, and he uses a wheelchair for mobility and a iPad to communicate. Uh, he is number two of five kids. And he has seen all of his siblings leave our home and gain independence and gain community. And he desperately wants that for himself. In 2019, he started getting pretty serious about wanting to live on his own. So we started doing research. We found nothing in Florida at all that looked like an inclusive space. And when I say that, Trace had let us know that he didn't want to live in a group home, and he didn't want to live in a space, no matter how nice it was, that was only created for people with disabilities. So he truly wanted to feel like he was in real community and to really feel like he was included. One major theme that I have encountered now that we have started building this community and we have so many advocates along with my son. It's the same idea that they feel like they're outsiders, that they don't belong in our society. And creating these spaces that are constantly putting them on the outside just intensifies that feeling. And granted, there are definitely individuals that would do better with the group home or a setting made just for people with disabilities, and those settings work really well for some people. So I'm not saying that there shouldn't be those settings, but also there should be options for increased inclusion. It should be the norm, and it is definitely not. And so again, we didn't find anything that resembled that idea in Florida. We started looking at other spaces. We found a really cool development in Maryland called Main Street, where their template is 70% of the people that have apartments are just individuals, that any individual that comes in off the street that wants to, rent there. And then 30% is individuals with disabilities. So my husband and I actually went to Maryland and toured Main Street and just looked at, the different safety interventions and things like that that they had put in place. We found another space in California and another space in Arizona. But of course, we're not sending our son out of state in order to have housing. So because we didn't find anything in Florida that resembled what, we really felt like would be a great template, we decided to create the Hive Inclusive Nonprofit to start building that development. And so in December of 2021, we started the 5013C.
So can you explain? Did you look at all into group homes in Tampa?
So I'm familiar with group homes. Also, my background is a nurse. I'm a nurse by profession. I've been a nurse for 24 years, and I've done community health, different types of home health and things like that to where I'm familiar with group homes. We've also actually been able to create some great relationships with individuals that have group homes as we started building this community, bring their members to our activities. And so really a group home is, it's a home that's been purchased in the community that looks, it's a neighbor, it's a home in the neighborhood, and it houses again individuals with disabilities. And then typically there is mentors that are there that come in and assist with cooking and any activities of daily living and things like that that the individual may need. So
Okay. So then how is the Hive different from group home?
yeah. So the Hive would be an apartment complex, an apartment development, and um, we would have uh, the template that we're looking at is 50% of the apartments would be for people with disabilities, and the other 50% would be for young people transitioning out of foster care, the elderly, our veterans, other populations that would benefit from the partnerships and supports that we've been able to put in place. And so the other major portion of that is the partnership. So within the development, we would have access to nurse practitioners. We would have a caregiving agency, support from a caregiving agency to provide whatever, support that that person would need. We would have a coffee shop within the development that hires mostly people with disabilities. We would have a fitness center and a daycare. And so really a true community that's created to have supports in place for people to live as independently as possible, but also a space where individuals can work where they live, and train where they live, and also experience community. So a major portion of that is being in a space right in the middle of everything where it's easy for transportation. Our members can leave and catch a bus and go to school or the doctor's appointment, but also very easy for the Tampa community to come in and take part in what we're doing, to come to our programming, our classes, and our fitness center, drop their kids off at our daycare, come and have coffee with us at the coffee shop. So true community, and also truly an inclusive space where people feel like they belong.
So is that pretty similar to the ones that you looked at in Arizona and California?
No, I haven't seen any with that template. We have seen um, spaces where the two populations that are combined are individuals with disabilities and the elderly. But we really like the idea of adding the population of young people transitioning out of foster care because, one, housing for young people transitioning out of foster care that is supported is a huge need here in Tampa and in Florida. But also, we're adding a more multi-generational inclusive population to where, again, the individuals with disabilities are having something that looks more like all ages, all different kinds of people. And so our model is, as far as we know, very unique in the population that we're including. But it just makes sense as well because, again, these populations would benefit from the supports that we're putting in place.
Mm. So when it comes down to like applications and people who actually want to live there, can you talk a little bit about what that looks like? And is it like a specific percentage that's actually like set aside and you like can't go over that for like each group of people or just what that looks like?
So honestly, the percentages are really going to be based on funding, and the funding sources that we are able to secure for the development. At, the template of being 50% people with disabilities and 50% other special populations would pretty much be the same. Um, as far as the application process, it would be a three-step application process where the first step is going to be about finances because it is going to be a low income development. And so, you would have to meet the criteria for that. And then the next step would be meeting with our advisors and just ensuring that, doing background checks, making sure, obviously this, because we have special populations of people, security and ensuring that we're protecting our community is going to be a really big deal. So everyone will have to go through thorough background checks to ensure that there is no history of violence or behavioral issues that would be concerning for the development, the community as a whole. And
Mm.
then after that, we would be sitting down, and I'm I'm sure there's a housing word for it, but families that are used to IEPs going through school, this would be kind of a housing process like that, to where we would be sitting down with advocates and caregivers and the individual and our team, and just ensuring that we are able to fully provide what's needed for that individual to be successful. Saying that, also saying that the Hive would not be responsible for the supports. Like, we have partnerships for supports that are available, but ultimately it's going to be that individual who wants to live in that space and their families, to ensure that, working with us, but to ensure that that space is going to be good for them. And I can use Trace as
Mhm.
an example, because he is high physical needs. So Trace is on the waiver support program through the APD. And so he gets caregivers that are in, um, Monday through Friday, from like 9 to 5, to assist him with his activities of daily living and eating. He needs full care physically. And so it would be up to us as a family to ensure that he has care around the clock. And
Mhm.
and so that would be on us, and finding the funding resources and things that are needed to ensure that he is taken care of, and has all the things that he needs outside of, his waiver support program. And so,
Mhm.
those are all things that we have to think about, as far as him moving into a space. But also, our thinking is, how can we make him feel as independent as possible? Not just feel, but be as independent as possible, with that. And so, every single individual is going to be different. Every single person's story is going to be different. There are going to be some individuals that come in and they really just need a supportive community, and maybe a nurse practitioner who's calling, or stopping by to ensure they took their medication that morning, or something like that. But again, that would be between the individual and their family and the nurse practitioner group, um, in collaborating to ensure that those things are put in place. And so part of
Mhm.
our that process of applying is ensuring that, okay, do we have all of the partnerships that we need, and what does a family have? What resources does a family have, that would be able to fully support the individual moving in?
Mhm.
And we
Oh,
won't. Those processes will get, you know right now, this is all a vision until we actually get the development up and going. And so those processes will be even more streamlined the closer we get to the development opening up. We will definitely be having, like, even once we get land and start building, we will be having community meetings, for all those people that are interested, and start really talking about the clear process, and what that's going to look like. Because by that point, we'll have, full funding secured, and kind of know clearly, like, what are the percentages, and what things are going to be able to be put in place.
okay. Um, I have a few questions from that.
Fantastic.
So, first off, I know we talk about how this is just like scratching the surface of the need. Can you talk specifically about, I mean, I know we don't have the development yet, so the number might not be there, but one, like how many units and how many people we think that we'd be able to house? And then, like, let's say someone's listening and they have a kid. I feel like a big concern that I've heard just from talking to people is like I don't know what I'm gonna do for my kid like once I pass. So if there's someone like that listening, like what are the odds of them even being able to like get their kid into this development? Yeah, that.
Those are good. So, we are looking at 80 to 100 units. And again, all of that's based on funding, but that's the goal, is 80 to 100 units. Right now in Florida, and we know that these numbers are very low, but per housing research, there's about 3,000 people, adults with disabilities, who need affordable housing. And there is about, combined with adults who need affordable housing, that have disabilities, and individuals coming out of foster care, there's about 7,000 units needed, currently in Florida. And that's not counting veterans or the elderly. And all of those spaces are in desperate need of housing. So obviously, we are we are not going to be able to create a huge dent in the overall picture. But what the goal is that, to start creating spaces that are providing the housing that are needed, and also start creating a potential template. As a nurse by profession, like, my major love and desire is research. I know that money follows research, and there's been very little research done on inclusive housing for adults with disabilities, especially when there is available supports in place. And so the Hive would actually also be a research based space for inclusive housing. And what that would mean is that we would be opening up ourselves up for additional funding when it comes to that research space, especially once we're able to show outcomes, positive outcomes, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically. We know that people do better when they feel it, when they truly feel that they belong, and when they have supports in place to be able to, have their health checked on, to be able to, maybe catch individuals that have concerns with behavioral, being able to catch those moments before spiraling because there's a community of people that have eyes on, right? And so we know that we're going to have good outcomes, even individually looking at spaces that just have one of those things, like maybe just supports in place. We already see in research that those individuals just do better physically and emotionally. And so that's exciting because we do want to be a research based space where potentially we can be creating a template that can be duplicated across America and be truly inclusive, and a truly inclusive template. Again, there's been very little research on housing for adults with disabilities, and there's been very little change in what's being offered for people with disabilities when it comes to housing. Even in the last 30 years, where we are with group homes and spaces that are made only for people with disabilities has stayed relatively the same. And
Mhm.
so it is definitely time for us to make major changes in the way inclusion looks, and starting with housing is it makes sense because housing is a major need for people all across America, and so people understand that.
Yeah. I think it's crazy too, because even if you have money, there's not that many resources either. Like, obviously, having money helps and you have access to more things. Like, there's like the Best Buddies apartments, which are super nice. But even then, I think there's super long wait lists. It's just kind of crazy,
And
like how much.
I believe those are $3,000 a month to live
Mhm.
in that space, which again, most people that are on on disability and SSI, they don't have the income for that. But you're
Mhm.
right. Also, most of those spaces, they have wait list of thousands. And so, and I think another major thing too with the Hive is that we really want to support even other organizations and we have been supporting other housing organizations locally that are also doing the same thing we are doing, because even if, like, I'm constantly saying this to individual organizations, even if 10 of us all got up at the same time, it's not enough. It's
Mhm.
not enough even for the need in Florida, let alone the need for any place else. And so, I just think it's important that organizations start really working together and supporting each other, because we are all serving the same communities. And it's literally going to take the village of all of us to get these developments up and to just bring hope in these spaces that it's desperately needed.
So there's other people starting similar developments.
I did a session at the Family Cafe. It's called the Family Cafe, and it is the largest disability conference in Florida. So I shared there about the Hive, and just in that conversation of sharing, I had four different organizations come up that I later met with and spoke about like what we've done so far, and again, just the idea of supporting each other, whatever questions you may need. If I figured it out, I have no problem helping someone else to figure it out, just because there's a lot to creating community and building development. And um so yes, there's definitely other organizations, not necessarily right in Tampa, but in Sarasota and surrounding areas that are trying to and have a heart to do the same. And so again, just really supporting each other, supporting every organization that is wanting to do housing, because it's going to take all of us to make a real dent in what needs to be done.
So are those apartment complexes?
No, they all kind of had their own different ideas and design. There's one group that is doing, it's not complexes, like condos. Like one group is
Mhm.
wanting to do like condos where people can actually buy the spaces, and their families could buy the spaces, and then maybe even the family lived there in the condo with them until the family is no longer able to anymore, which is a great idea as well. So I think that there's a lot of varying degrees. Definitely, as far as our template and the idea of inclusion, I think that we're still very unique in this space. But again, I think that individuals should have a choice of, of where they want to live, whether that's a condo type space, whether that's an apartment complex, whether that's a group home. There should be multiple types of spaces for housing for adults with disabilities. And
Yeah.
so,
So I'm kind of curious to what that conference was like and just like the general consensus of like what the disability community needs more of or like what you guys kind of talked about.
yeah, and actually that's a great question, and it was huge. First of all, I don't even know how many vendors. I'll have to put a link in just to share with everyone who's unfamiliar with Family Cafe, but they do great work in our communities and in Florida. But so there were 3 days of individuals speaking, lots of advocates speaking. We actually have advocates in our community that did presentations. So that would be a great other podcast that we could do with some of our advocates, because they are, of course, would be the best voices and really talking about the needs of the disability community. And also, they themselves did great presentations, and so we should definitely look at that as future podcasts. But yeah, Family Cafe, the conference is amazing. If you are a family member in Florida, or an advocate with disability, you should absolutely know who the Family Cafe is. And if you have not been to one of their conferences, it's so empowering. Even this last conference we went to, my son and I, Trace and I, had gone into a space where advocates were talking about the need for representation. And I could just see all through his facial expressions, my son's facial expressions, how much awe and hope he had in sitting and listening to individuals that represented him and looked like him, speaking so fiercely about what needs to be done as far as representation. And, leaving there, he was just so inspired and riled up and just ready to go. And so it's such a needed space, and individuals with disabilities absolutely need to be in those spaces. All of us, actually, not just individuals with disabilities, all of us need to be in those spaces, listening to advocates, understanding the issues, and being allies and being a part of helping, move agendas forward as far as what
Mhm.
is needed. So, but yeah, I just, even just what I know it did for my son being in that space, and also seeing all the innovative ideas and things that people are producing, and potential new opportunities in the disability community. Like, it was just a great space to be in.
Yeah, that's cool. So you would say like representation, housing, what are some of the other like major.
Transportation, adequate healthcare. That's a huge one, especially right now. Um, there are cuts being made to Medicare, and our communities, the disability communities, highly rely on Medicare. And so uh, they make huge impacts. And so, yeah. And it's frustrating because these are just very basic needs, right? These are
Mhm.
Maslow's very basic needs, right? Housing, and affordable, safe housing, and being able to utilize healthcare and um, get supplies for your ventilators, and get the interventions that are needed to be able to help you actually live your life fully. And um, these are basic needs that are major concerns and issues. So,
Yeah. Um, do you think you could talk a little bit about so just like when Hive started, what we've been doing so far, and then kind of like where we're at with housing?
sure. So we started the 501(c), like I said, in December 2021. We started from that point, building a board and just trying to get the rooted foundation of what the nonprofit was going to look like, getting our brand together. And so then in June of 2022, we decided to start building our community, like not waiting for the development, because another need is spaces where, again, adults with disabilities feel like they are thriving and learning and growing, and that community is a part of their daily lives. And so we wanted to just go ahead and start, building that community and seeing what that can look like. So we started offering instructor-led classes based off of the desires of our community. So really, I mean, we popular things are gardening and cooking and art, things like that. But any class that an individual member asks to have, we reach out to instructors in our community that are knowledgeable about that, and then we bring them in to teach the class. So we've had classes on how to publish your book on Amazon. We've had a class on puppeteering. We had one member who absolutely loves um, uh, the Muppets, and we reached out to Jim Henson and asked if they could, do a Zoom puppeteering class. They connected us to a nonprofit that was able to do a fantastic puppeteering class. Really, our goal is just whatever individuals want to grow, we want to find a way to make that happen, find those classes. Another area is um, support groups. So we have an entrepreneurs with disability support group for disability advocates, and a support group for caregivers. And then we have events. So karaoke and bowling, and then our big events like our fashion show, which is our major event of the year. So
So then,
that's where kind of the idea of community started, and building community. And so from then those classes started going. And then obviously very focused, because our main issue and desire and mission is the land and the development. And so 3 years ago we connected with the developer, and the developer we connected to had literally just finished working on a project called Independence Landing in Tallahassee. She has a major heart for the disability community, which was perfect. And then just starting to learn from her about, all the areas of housing. Started going to housing conferences in throughout Florida, and just again just setting in spaces and learning the Hive team. So really, just, not just me, but individuals that are on our board, and then just really following up on every lead that we had when it comes to land. Starting out this journey, Tampa has less than 4% available land, so to be purchased. So we knew this was going to be a journey. It was gonna take us a minute to get to the land that we really wanted. Also, land is the space of where the land is very, very important. I talked about that a little bit, but it has to be in a space where bus routes run easily. It has to be in a space where the Tampa community can easily come in and visit. And so, having those parameters has definitely made it harder, because we've definitely had opportunities to purchase land, and even people were willing to donate land kind of out in the middle of nowhere. The problem with that is that it would not truly be inclusive, and
mm,
we would not be able to really create the vision that we have for an inclusive community by going into those other spaces. So
mm,
but again, we have a land team made up of three realtors and an individual who specializes in affordable housing here in Florida, and they have absolutely been um, a major part of, the different spaces of land that we have found. Literally anyone who calls me or emails or texts to say, hey, have you guys thought about this space, our team follows up on. And so, yeah, so it's been definitely a journey. We have recently in June, um, we got excited because we did find a potential space that was within um, our financial guidelines, and was in a space locally that would be perfect. But unfortunately, the funding sources, from the Florida Supportive Housing applications that we are planning on using, would not be able to be used in those areas. And so it's just been like a hit. We getting really excited about a space that we may find, and then things don't go through necessarily for that, just because there's, you know, anybody who does development, there's so many rules and things attached to it to ensure that that space is going to do well. So we've just been, following all the leads that we can. Currently, I'm in conversations with a religious group who has land, and they reached out to us, and we're just following in on those conversations and seeing where those go. But it's the land portion has definitely been a journey, and I firmly believe that the land that is for us will open up for us when the time is right. And
Mhm.
it's just following the leads and figuring, following up on all the resources until, we get to that space. And honestly, we'll be four in December. I mean, I just feel like what we've been able to accomplish so far, of even just building a community of over 70 members, having all of the events that we've been able to have. I think our first year we had 70 events. Really building and creating a root system and a foundation, building the board that has the expertise needed. It's all been a part of that like 4-year process, and I think all fundamental. And again, ensuring that the Hive is successful once we do get that development in place. And so I have to remind myself that too. Like, Tonya, you guys you'll be 4 in December. You're
Mhm.
doing good. Everybody's doing good.
Yeah.
But it is a journey. And I think that most, actually, every single person that I've talked to that are developers, and that's another thing too. Um, I've met with a lot of developers who have developed housing for special populations, like the homeless community and young people transitioning out of foster care, and veterans. So I've our team has also just been really strategic about meeting with other spaces that have been successful in doing it. But every single conversation with every developer I've had, they've all been like, it's the labor of love. It's gonna
Mhm.
it's gonna be really hard to push this out. But when you do, it's just like having a baby. Like, it's the most miraculous thing ever. And it's totally worth all of the effort and all the work that takes to get it done. But not one developer has ever said, oh, it was no problem. And
Yeah.
so we have kind of just gone in understanding that this is going to be a labor of love, and it is going to take a village of people and resources to get us to where we're going. But we do keep moving closer to the needle. And so that's what matters.
So I know you talked about, well, I guess can we just talk about like the overall budget, like how much we think this is going to cost? Um, and then I guess if you could touch a little bit on like the complexities of city land versus county land and like, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. Okay, so our budget, which, let's start with the easy part. So we are looking for land between the 1 million and 3 million space, which is actually crazy in Tampa. This is Tampa. So, and the one that I told you about that we did find was within that guideline. Um, we are able to utilize funding sources for land to pay for half of that. And so that, you know, would be fantastic to be able to find land within that budget of space. Um,
So is that budget just based off how much government funding?
No, it's based off, so literally it would be half from donations and community support, and the other half from government funding. Um,
Okay.
Also, but there's also, it's like, so for the conversations that I'm talking to right now with the religious community, they are willing to, if the land works, and they have land that would be in spaces that would be good for Hive, they would be willing to lease the land, which is huge, because
Mm,
that would mean that, and they're willing to lease the land, like, uh, you know, 99 years for $20 a year, basically. And so it would be very, obviously, very easy and much more financially appealing for us to be able to lease the land, instead of having to pay for the land. Because it's still, it's still obviously covering our lifespans, and So we would still, know that sustainability would be good, and not have to, worry about the funding sources uh, for that. So leasing would be amazing. There are quite a few developments that have gone up that have been able to lease.
So
So
would
when
that be like the developments already existing, or you would like tear down and rebuild, or is it literally just like land?
they just have land.
Okay.
So, and so, but for example, on leasing, Independence Landing in Tallahassee was leased through the city. They,
Mm.
there was a really large park that they were able to split the land of the park for and give some of that land to Independence Landing, and they leased it. We did and have been working heavily with the city of Tampa. They have been uh, strong supporters of the Hive. We have built great relationships with them. We have met with them often in looking at available land for the Hive. But for what we're looking at so far, the city has not had anything available for us. Um, there's also available land through the county, and with all of these spaces, it's hard because they're all government ran. um, all of these spaces, there's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of politics that go into land, and who receives it, and kind of what the agendas are, um, and so whether it's county or whether it's city, um, being able to get the support, get votes, to be able to utilize the land, it really is dependent on the majority of the representatives and where their support follows. So if there's not a lot of support for affordable housing, it will be much more difficult to get the support from whatever the entity is. And so that's and also in the times currently that we're living in, affordable housing is a major issue. Um, and as we've talked about, there's not enough. But also, I think that awareness of true needs for affordable housing and the people that are needing it, understanding that any of us at any point in time could be an individual with a disability, that requires affordable housing. And just as a society, all of us understanding that it's not a handout to give somebody to create spaces where we are putting people in position to thrive and to grow, and and to feel safe. And so I just think that there's so much more than I understood walking into this space of politics that come into play when it comes to affordable housing, and who gets money, and when you get money, and who's backing you. Uh, I don't even know if this is all good to say right now.
No, it's interesting. I feel like it's kind of necessary to understand.
Yeah.
Um, but is it even possible to like are there more regulations because you would be receiving money for the land? Like if let's say someone just decided to like privately fund the land, would you still have to deal with all of that?
So outside of the land, we have to have the development. And I mentioned the Florida Supportive Housing Finance. They are one of the largest groups in Florida that assist with helping developments build affordable housing complexes or developments. And it's a very competitive application process that's released 2 times a year. And the great thing is our developer has won it, many times. And so we're going in with people that have the consultants and people on their team to help us create a competitive packet. But it is very competitive. And so even once we get the land, we have to um, win the finances for the housing, the development, which is, and it's $22 million or around that. It changes a little bit each year, but because we've secured so many partnerships, because of the template that we're creating, we do think our we would be it's a very competitive space. We'd be able to compete in that space. But even after all that, so even after we get the funding, even after we have the land, then it's about where the land is. A
Mm.
major issue with developments for affordable housing is the community that lives around them. There have been communities that have been able to shut down affordable housing developments from even being developed because they don't want people building in their backyard, in their spaces, or they maybe don't want our special populations living near them, which it's actually a very big issue in the development of affordable housing, and one that we have to be taking consideration of as we look at land and the spaces where it's available. So, and then also depending on if we do need support, wherever, whether that land is in the county or whether that land is in the city, those entities also have to approve the build and the development. And so we would still need the support of wherever that location is that we're building in.
So what is some of the red tape that you would have to deal with?
So if there are multiple housing developments that are wanting to go up, and let's say one is for workforce, which is teachers and firemen and things like that, um, and one is like the Hive for our population, and maybe one is for maybe just lower affordable housing, but not because affordable housing, just saying that word, it's very broad. So affordable housing could be, you know, it's rated based on the percentage below the income received based on the population of people, right? So I've seen affordable housing units that are $1,000 a month, okay, and they're considered affordable housing, and affordable housing units that are, $700 a month, which is probably at the lowest point for affordable housing. There's still a drastic difference between those prices, right? And so if there's a developer who wants to build just regular affordable housing, not including people with disabilities or any special populations, they would also be able to present in front of the city or the county and try to get land and get approval for land and then get approval for budgets and funding. So we're competing with all of those spaces. And based on kind of the mission and the 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 thought process of whatever, you know, county representative or city representative that sits in those positions to choose is kind of determine who's going to get that funding. So if that representative feels like if the majority of those representatives feel that just regular affordable housing is good and that there's not a need for affordable housing for people with disabilities and young people transitioning out of foster care, then they can absolutely choose to approve those other developments and not the Hive. So
Mhm.
it's so much about politically, honestly, what's happening at the time,
Mhm.
what the political sentiment is with the majority of the people that are voting, and money also, because I mean, obviously, if there's a for-profit developer who is wanting to bring in a lot of potential money into a space, that's appealing, right? And so um there's just a lot of issues, and I don't want to say issues, there's just a lot of things to consider when
Mhm.
presenting in front of whether it's the county or the city about a need. So
Yeah, very complex.
it's very complex. And changes. It could change. Like I could try, we could go before a group of people, no matter what the entity, and and at this time in history, and they'd be like, absolutely not. We don't think this is the main concern. And then in 5 years, we could do it again. Obviously, we're not going to wait that long, but we could do it again. It'd be a totally different sentiment and group of people and have it approved with no problem. And so it
Mhm.
just really does hinge on where we are right now.
But you've expressed you're pretty confident that, like, if we find the land in the next couple of years, we'd be able to get the funding from the city, like, we'd get approved for
S-
that.
So I think that whether it's city or county, that we have a great chance to be able to go and if we find the land and find the development, we have a great chance to present and share and and get approval for the land. Um, but I think just based again, it's just dependent on what the current initiatives are for the city and county at that time of presenting it.
Mm,
But yes, I do think that we would have a good opportunity. Like it's just
mhm,
and again too, it's because the Hive is not just about affordable housing. We're about we're about job opportunities, like allowing people to work where they live. Um, I didn't mention this so far, but we're also creating the first neurodivergent dental lab training center, and that will be housed within the Hive as well. So this isn't just housing; it is truly a space where people can learn and grow, find employment, and have stability based on the partnerships that we would be securing. So I think that
mhm,
just because of our template and because of what we represent, that it would be appealing and it should be appealing across all bipartisan platforms. So,
mhm. Okay, I'll ask one more question on that because I feel like we've talked about housing a lot, but just if our doors open today,
mhm.
what would be the 30-year plan to keep it funded, to guarantee that the people who are paying from Social Security or whatever can afford it and that it's not gonna, like, shut down?
Yeah. So the 30-year plan would, again, I think a major part of our plan is being a research based space that automatically just kind of sets us apart. And I think one major issue with nonprofits is, and this is only again, this is my nurse mind, but you know, when it comes to the medical side of things, in everything that we do, is if we can prove outcomes, if we can prove that this is successful, if this is a successful medication, if this is a successful procedure, um, then we're going to get the funding to continue to create more, right? And so, but also in nursing, like was hammered into us in throughout school and onward is that if it's not documented, if you don't show progress, if it's not clearly shown and written in a space where somebody can come back and look at it, it wasn't done and it wasn't effective. And I feel like being in this nonprofit space, that's one thing that I noticed is that I don't feel like enough nonprofits show what they do. They don't clearly have numbers to document and show the successes that they have because it's not clearly followed. And so I think that that's a major portion of the research side of things is, you know, from the very beginning, clearly being able to show outcomes of differences between how many times did this member have to go to the emergency room when they were living outside of the Hive compared to now, and how has their physical health changed? You know, how has their emotional health changed? How has their behavioral health changed? But being able to really keep track of of those outcomes, I think will keep us open for not only the grants and funding that are available for affordable housing, it sets us apart and having us look a little bit differently than what other housing groups are doing. Besides just the supports that are being in place, but also like clear documentation of how those supports are effective. But again, we're setting ourselves up for long-term funding and being a space that it can be known for inclusion. The other thing is our dental lab training center uh, that will actually roll over once people are trained into being an actual dental lab, and those funds would be generated in helping the development continue to thrive and to grow. Even looking at our partnerships and we plan on having not necessarily just with our partnerships, we plan on having a commercial space within the Hive, and so the fitness center and the daycare and the coffee shops, all those spaces would be paying like renters fees to also be going back into the development. So all of those things will help with sustainability besides actual people paying their rents and things like that. But all those would just be cumulative spaces to help keep us sustained. I think the 30-year plan would be to keep the develop, look and see how we have what we've created once those development doors open. There's never a development that opens that has no issues, that has no problems that come from that. And so really being able again be strategic about looking at where are our weaknesses, where can we keep continuing to grow, and modifying our model to fit that, to where eventually it would be amazing, um, to again create a template to where other developments can easily see what we have done, utilize all of the research and the things that we are using to create it, and then mimic that across America so that we
Mhm.
don't have again these huge lulls of spaces that are not able to offer inclusive housing. And our major hindrance starting this was that no one's done it before. No one's done this before. And so it's intimidating and it makes it just a little bit harder. Um, so I think that if for other developments to be able to have a clear template, it would have been lovely if we could have walked into this with a clear template of, oh, this is what inclusive housing looks like. Let's go. And we've
Mhm.
kind of had to research and visit other spaces and just figure it out. And so, so we know we're going to have to modify. We know we're going to have to make adjustments, but be very intentional about it and very strategic about okay, how how are we changing this and documenting this the whole process, every step, so that once we get it to a space where we feel like it's very successful, then we can mimic it and other people can mimic
Mhm.
it.
I
So,
love that.
yeah.
Um, okay, kind of final question. What are just like the biggest things that the Hive is lacking right now that someone could come in and like fill the need, whether it's
Yeah,
finances, certain like skills that we're looking for like in volunteers or just
yeah,
anything like that?
that's a great question. One, it doesn't matter what you're able to do, whether um, so if you can't make a donation and ally with us and partner with us and that, then even volunteering um, is amazing. And so we have spaces in our fundraising, we have spaces in our social media team, we have spaces with um, our classes and instructor-led programming. There's so many areas that individuals could just jump right in with us and start, lending your time and your talents to helping the Hive grow and helping our members thrive. Also, obviously, donations would be amazing. And we're not just looking for donations. We truly want people to partner with us so that, when we have big events, we would love to have corporate sponsors whose employees come to those events. They take part in what inclusion looks like. They take part in our fashion show. They take part in our runs, and learn our community, and also, be a part of and also even for that organization to truly feel like they are being a part of moving the Hive forward. So not just a donation, but looking for people who want to ally and belong and support by being a part of what we're doing. So corporate sponsorships are big. Also, oftentimes people are already working at jobs that will they have match programs that will match their funding that they put in. So that's another easy way that if even if you can't drop the amounts of money that you wish you could, even just taking small amounts out of each of your each paycheck and then your job matching that does add up.
Mhm.
And we literally just got someone sent us a donation of $1,000 from a match program that she did through her job. So it adds up. And so, and every little thing it counts. So not only just your finances, but your time and your talent and your energy, and your desire. Like anybody who was hearing this and they're like, wow, like I love what they're doing. I want to be an ally, or I want to be a disability advocate. I want to stand and speak for housing, um, are welcome.
Mhm. So if someone wants to donate, the website's the best place for that. And there's
Correct.
monthly options, right?
Yes. Yep. You can donate. You can become a member as well. Um, again, even if you can't do a large donation, if you become a member, a membership is $10 a month. So you could become a member, or yes, you can donate. And our donations, you can put that whether you want that annually or whether you want it semi-annually, those things would automatically come out. And you could also choose to be a longer term supporter. So if you're somebody that's hearing about our vision, you understand that sustainability is going to be a major issue, and you want to partner with us and align with us for a longer term, you can partner with us for like 5 years and commit to that and commit to, a yearly donation for 5 years. And so all of those types of partnerships are really important. Every single one, including volunteers, all the way up to our corporate donors, every single one moves the needle and matters to building our community.
And what's the best way to reach you if someone wants to volunteer?
So you could either go on our website, which is theinclusivehive.org, and I will make sure that those links are in this podcast episode. Or if you want to reach out to me directly, you can email me at Tonya, it's just Tonya, at theinclusivehive.org.
Instagram would be good too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely. Our social media team is very active on Instagram and Facebook. And so if you want to, and LinkedIn as well, you can we have, and actually thank you for bringing up social media, Ansley, because that's another very easy way that you can support us is by following us on social media and sharing our content. A huge, easy way to spread our mission and spread the vision of the Hive. So we'll make sure to have the link tree connected to this so that people can see all the different options of how to find us and support.
but yeah, those are kind of all the questions I had. I think questions might come up after this. Like if someone listens and people have more questions, we can always do a part two or just like start broadcasting a little bit better about like the things that the Hive is doing and where we're at in general. So I feel like if people have questions, just like don't be afraid to ask either like at events or like DM the Instagram, anything like that, because the more we can kind of like put out there and show everyone what the Hive is actually doing, I think the more support we'll have. So
No, I love that. And I also, Ansley and I have talked about this, but if you do have a question, I have no problem creating little reels to answer all of your questions. And so definitely send them in and we will follow up from there.
awesome.
Is that all your questions, Ansley?
Yeah. Unless,
Okay.
is there anything else you think we missed?
I don't know. I feel like we talked a lot.
I
um,
guess like one final question. Where are we at right now with funding and how much more like private funding, just like donations, are we looking for?
Yeah. So right now we have 60,000 that we've gotten from donations and private funding. We have a grant writing team that has just started putting out grants. We just wrote a grant for $50,000. So we'll definitely follow up on the grant processes too. I just love the idea of sharing, not just within the nonprofit, but outwardly, so everybody kind of hears what we're going after and the aspects of what we're doing. But we just really built our grant writing team, and so we're really excited about that because that will definitely help with increasing the amounts of funds that we have. But so yeah, that's our current goal as far as finance goes is increasing our strategy for fundraising. We have two major events that we do each year. One is brand new that we're adding, which is our run, which is going to be in February. It's going to be a fun run and or walk. So one is going to be 1 mile, where it's just a fun walk that anyone can take participate in. We really wanted to do an event like that was open to all abilities. So whether you're in a wheelchair, whether you use a walker, whether you are walking, you're welcome to be a part of that event. And then we're also doing the same time we're doing a 5K for more competitive people. You can still absolutely do that walking or in specialized wheelchairs. I know that I have actually raced against people that are in racing wheelchairs and got my hiney kicked when in my younger days. And so Yeah, so you can absolutely, all people are welcome at both levels, at the more competitive level and or just a fun walk just to be a part of things. So that's in February. And then our biggest fundraiser of the year is our fashion show. If you guys have not heard about our fashion show and you're in the Tampa area, you absolutely have to come to our fashion show. It's amazing. We have designers that have disabilities, and we have just designers without. We have models with and without disabilities. It is truly an inclusive space. We have so much fun, and the next fashion show is June 20th. So put that on your calendars. So yeah, so but fundraising is a major space of strategy, is just to continue to build those funds and the monies that we need as a nonprofit. Also, I've mentioned a lot about our board, but we've been really strategic about the individuals that we have placed on the board, and our board is well equipped to go after the funding sources that are available either through the county or through the city, and to help secure funds that we need for land, and also eventually to help secure funds for the development and support. Um, and then and then grants. So all of those things are a part of our initiative as far as funding and ensuring that we have the amount of funding needed going into having this development. So does that answer your question,
Awesome.
Ansley?
Yeah, no, that was
Okay.
perfect. I guess, yeah, like last thing I would say is like, I think regardless of the skill that you have, like whether we mention it or not, I think it'd be cool to partner with anyone. You know what I mean? Like I think there's so many different ways that you can help move the Hive mission forward. Even if you're like you work in marketing and you want to do like a 30-minute, 1 hour meeting with us to like go over our marketing plan or just like even little things like that. I think this is a space where everyone's very open to ideas. It's a very like innovative space. So definitely don't be afraid to reach out and just like offer up what you're able to.
No, I love that. And I did try to mention our collaborations. I don't think I mentioned it a lot. We have had amazing collaborations in our community with community gardens, with USF, with UT, and so we are very open to uh, doing those collaborations, just like Ansley mentioned, any way that we feel like it's going to, one, help Hive's mission be more well known, not just in Florida but nationally, but also anything that's going to move inclusion forward. We are open to and would love to continue to partner and collaborate with other organizations and individuals and families that have trust, or just families with that same mission to move to move the needle forward for inclusion and for the Hive.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Tonya. I feel like we covered a lot, but we can definitely reconvene if people have more questions or want us to talk about more. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you again. Yeah, just don't be afraid to message on Instagram if you want to get involved or anything like that.
This sounds good. I'm going to let Ansley end it right there. Thank you guys so much for listening. Ansley, thank you so much for the interview. And we'll be listening for any questions that come out of it. Thank you for joining us on Talking Inclusivity with the Hive. We hope the stories shared inspire and empower you. Remember, every voice matters and every action can make a difference. If you haven't gotten the chance to listen to the About Us episode, a link will be provided in the show notes. Learn more about the Hive's journey for inclusive housing in Tampa. If what you hear resonates within you, join the movement. Hit subscribe and join our tribe. Let's continue to build a world where inclusion is the norm.